Morning, church. My first vehicle that I ever got to call kind of my own was a 1968 Chevy Stepside. This was late 90s, so it was considered a classic almost at this point. And I remember I could open up the hood, get in the hood, pull the hood back down on top of me, and kind of work on stuff in it. And one of the parts that you have to work on in vehicles, at least back then, was a thing called a thermostat. Some of you probably are familiar with a thermostat. It's a little disc about yay big and regulates the coolant flow through the engine so the engine stays at temperature. Well, my next vehicle that I got to kind of call my own was a Pontiac Aztek. I thought about showing y'all a picture, but I don't want to hurt your brains today, because it's a pretty ugly vehicle. And that's what I actually had when I got here to Singing Oaks, was an old Pontiac Aztek. And it had the kind of same problem. It had a 3400 V6 engine in it. It's a great engine, a lot of fun to drive, ugly as sin car. I mean, there's just no way around it. But I remember the thermostat going out in it, and I took it to a radiator shop when I was out in Abilene, and I said, hey, I don't really have time to do this, but can y'all switch out the thermostat? And the guy came back a little while later and said, yeah, it'd be $800. I said, I'm sorry, we're on a different page here. I said, the thermostat, it's a $3 part I can go buy from AutoZone. He goes, you do it. I was like, I will. So I drove over to a buddy of mine's house, parked it in his front driveway, went in, opened up the hood, found where the thermostat was, and discovered that the engine was designed by an engineer, not a mechanic. All the parts were there. Everything worked like it was supposed to work. It was probably very well designed until it needed something fixed on it. And a $3 part that goes out commonly on these things, in fact, I had it, and it went out 3 times in the time I had it. Took 6 hours of my labor to change because of bad design. I want you to kind of think about this a little bit. You know, engineers can spend a lot of time buried away trying to understand what's going on, and mechanics could be the guys that are on the ground actually doing, and sometimes you wish you could just get both of them together. It's one of those kind of age-old things, you know. I think the same can be true when it comes to education. I think there's a difference between designing something on paper and having to work on it in the real world. I think there's a difference between learning something in a classroom and having to apply it in real life. Remember when I went back to ACU a few years after my training, after I'd been here for a while, and I got to sit down with a guy named Brady Bryce who had preached here right when I got here, and he was running Summit. He invited us all back to ACU, a bunch of grads, and he set us in a big round table. There was 20 of us in a circle, and he said, hey, if you've been out there in the real world, you've been practicing ministry for a while, what's something that you would want us to know that would help us better train ministers? And, you know, and it kind of starts going around the room, and it's a great question. It gets to me, and I said, Brady, I said, you know, I have a couple of different degrees, one in counseling and one in theology or Christian ministry. He said, yeah. And I said, how do they train counselors to do counseling? He goes, I'm not really sure what you mean. I said, well, they put us in class, and then they take us straight out of the class, and they put us in a room with a family and another counselor. And we watch, and we interact, and we practice it in real time. He goes, yeah. I said, how do you train ministers? He kind of looks at me. I said, you have us read books and write papers. That's not what we do when we get to a church. Yeah, I get it. You got to figure out how things work, but sometimes you can be so in your ivory tower of thought that you don't actually know how to do what it is you're supposed to do. We've been talking in our series here about finding Jesus. And we talked about a bunch of different ways in which people discover Jesus, but one way we haven't, I don't know, hit real hard just yet is a very simple one. You know, sometimes the only way to know whether something really works is to get out of talking and thinking and reading about it and actually do it. It's to get out of the ivory tower and into the real world. I mean, people have been analyzing Jesus for 2,000 plus years. Was he really the Son of God? Can we trust the Gospels? Did he really rise from the dead? What did he mean by his teaching? How does Christianity fit in with science? What about suffering? And yes, these are legitimate questions and things that we, I think, should pursue. But what if there's another way of investigating who Jesus is and finding him that sometimes we overlook? What if we actually just tried doing what he said? Sometimes experience teaches us way more than what explanation can. When you were a kid, I'm going to say it two ways. How did your parents teach you to obey? When you were a kid, how did you learn to obey? I want you to think about that. Right? I think Carl's right. I got a belt. Right? I think we learned because our parents taught us to obey through negative consequences and positive reinforcement. If you obeyed, you got rewarded, and if you disobeyed, you got worn out with a belt or a stick or a twig or sitting in timeout or, my favorite's making them go read. Maybe that's why I don't like to read. How did you learn to obey? And I think as kids, we often learn because of negative consequence. But that negative consequence doesn't always teach us why the boundary existed in the first place. As mature adults, I think something has to change. We begin to recognize that maybe my mom or my dad wasn't trying to ruin my fun, but maybe they knew something I didn't know. And I think that's a big problem for us in our culture, in our world, in our American independent mindset. I think we're very much materialist and humanist. We think we can know. And we think we can do. And if something seems mystical to us, we think we can discover and understand. We are, at our core, I think, truth seekers. We pursue truth through all sorts of different avenues, through science, philosophy, theology, education, debate, my favorite, research, and many times those things turn into good things. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do them. I think it's great that we are trying to mature and understand, but I think we have to be careful that we don't fall into the trap. The one that Genesis warns us about. The one in which we decide that we know better. I always like watching the little kids who say, I can do it. And they can't. But part of you just wants to let them try. Maybe they'll surprise you. Or maybe those teenagers who think, those old ways are old. They don't apply to today. We can live life completely different. It'll be just fine. Just because you did it and failed doesn't mean that I'll do it and fail. Sometimes we can try to discover the truth our own way, but through the wrong means. Or even worse, as we discover truth, we think our truth is better than God's truth. I think that's what I see a lot today, at least in our Christian culture. We take our worldly truth and we try to reapply it to the Bible and say, well, let's reinterpret the Bible based on this new worldly truth. Do y'all see that? Am I making y'all uncomfortable? Or are y'all just thinking? I think that could be our ivory tower problem sometimes. An idea can be beautifully constructed, logically consistent, and incredibly impressive, and then somebody tries to implement it. There's a reason the Pontiac Aztec died pretty fast. Somebody saw it was a good thing on paper until somebody had one in the real world. I still think it has the title as ugliest vehicle ever created. And we get out there and we discover, you know what? It really doesn't work. The engineer produces the elegant design. 5 years later, the mechanic can't replace the $5 part in it without spending thousands of dollars to get to it. The engineer wasn't wrong or stupid. The problem is that there are things you discover in the shop that you can't discover in the drawing board. The problem is there's things that you discover in the real world actually doing it that you can't always discover just sitting here. There's application in real life that you can't always discover just reading and trying to reinterpret. I think that's our analogy for faith today. That some people approach faith like an engineer. We want to study it. We want to draw it out. We want to work out the problem. I need to understand Genesis. I need to understand how to resolve suffering. I need to understand why Christians disagree. I need to combine Christianity and science in a perfect way. I need all the answers about why sexuality needs to be the way it's supposed to be. I need to comprehend what judgment fully means. I need to know exactly every little piece of what I believe and have it all figured out. Although those aren't necessarily bad questions, there's always another one. Eventually, our pursuit of perfect understanding prevents us from actually trying to do what we've been studying. I remember when Ross was here, there's a few little nuggets of gold he handed me over the years, and one of them, and I don't know who actually said it, I should have Googled this, and somebody else will, but the idea of the perfect is the enemy of the good. I remember him saying that to me one day, and I just thought, well, you're a walking, talking example of that, buddy. And so am I sometimes. So are all of us sometimes. We have to be able to see that it's actually going to work before we'll actually do it. That's not sheep like going out amongst wolves. That's not faith that we see in the Scriptures. That's not Paul writing a letter to Rome and thinking it's all going to work. I mean, we can't possibly see it all. We're not even supposed to see it all. We're just supposed to, if you love me, obey my commands. But our world's different. It teaches us we have to understand it. We have to agree with it. We have to decide whether it works. Then maybe we'll try it. But what happens? What happens when Jesus tells me to do something I don't want to do? Because if Jesus only gets to command me when I already agree with him, he's not really my Lord. I am. There was my well. I felt Barbara saying that when I wrote that. I just felt it. I said, Barbara's going to go, well. Thanks, Barbara. Luke 9, 23 through 25. This is Jesus talking here. And he said to all, if anyone would come after me. Listen to these words. These are tough words. Do they make sense? No. Are you going to clean them all up today and factor them into every part of your life perfectly? No. Listen, though. If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. For what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses or forfeits himself? See, that's the problem. We often prefer to figure Jesus out before we decide if we're going to follow him or not. You got an echo over there, Barbara. I love it. Our problem may not be that we don't know enough about Jesus. In fact, I think we know a lot about Jesus. Our problem may be that we haven't done enough with him already. And we haven't done enough of what we already know about him. Jesus says in John 14:15, if you love me, you will keep my commands. Doesn't say understand them. Doesn't say be able to explain them to the scientific and the philosophical and the atheists. Doesn't say that. It just says you will keep them. James 1, 22 through 25, later on in the Bible, brother of Jesus says this, be doers, in verse 22, be doers of the word and not only hearers, deceiving yourselves. Think about that. I want you to listen to that line. Be doers of the word, not only hearers of the word, and deceiving yourself. Think about that. You can know the information and deceive yourself into thinking you're doing it. You can read it. You can study it. I use this phrase a lot back in and I think it still applies today. I think if we could have like a pair of glasses and we could put it on and we could see Christians, like truly see, I think we would see a bunch of really obese Christians all over the planet. They would just be fat. I mean, just rolls coming out of them. And you talk to them, you say, hey, what's going on with you? And they say, I'm just sluggish and tired all the time. I think I just need to study the Bible a little bit more and go to another Bible study and sit through another sermon and sing another song, have another Devo. And I'm like, if you could see yourself, you'd see you're eating enough. What are you doing with it? And I think we would also see a lot of really skinny Christians. A lot of people that don't ever consume Jesus. They're just out doing good, running on fumes, helping people out but not truly enjoy, running ragged, exhausted. I can't do enough. I think there's a balance to be said there, and it's a great one that comes from real life application that you gotta eat a little and you gotta do a little if you want to live a little. We sang this song a little bit earlier, right at the very beginning of this service. Trust and obey. You hear that phrase, and what's the next words come to your mouth? For there's no other way. To be happy in Jesus, but to trust and obey. James 1, 23. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man observing his natural face in the mirror. For he observes himself, goes away, and immediately forgets what kind of man he was. But he who looks into the perfect law of liberty and continues in it, and is not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this one will be blessed in what he does. He who looks in and then goes and does. He who builds his house on a solid rock versus he who learns about building a house on a solid rock and goes and builds it on the sand with no foundation. There's a lot of us out there that might be good hearers but not good doers. But that's not the point of this sermon. The point of this sermon is this, is that there's a lot of people out in this world that if you can convince them to just try living like Jesus lived, they might find him. If you could convince them to just do what Jesus does, they might discover him. If you could just be the example for them and they look at your life and they see your joy and they see your attitude and they see the fruit, they might just try it and thereby discover what logic can't always explain. This is where we take trust and obey away from just being a hymn that we sing. Maybe we need to forgive more. Maybe we need to love our enemies better. Maybe we need to serve rather than demand being served. Maybe we need to give more of what we have. Maybe we need to tell the truth instead of cower away from it sometimes. Maybe we should practice sexual integrity. Maybe we should stop retaliating. Maybe we should care more for the poor. Truly love our neighbors as ourselves. And in that, maybe when we start living Jesus' way and then somewhere along the road, we begin discovering what we really in our hearts know to be true. That there really is no other way to be happy in Jesus. Forgiveness really does free you. Generosity is really better than greed. Serving really does produce something that self-centeredness never could. Grace really changes relationships. Loving your enemy actually does break the cycle of constant retaliation. And then suddenly, maybe as we go through life, the Bible starts to make sense. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one can come through the Father except through me. Maybe we start to discover that Jesus is accurate about the kingdom. And maybe we could say we haven't just merely studied the way, we've walked it. And then that discovery leads somewhere. So what are we supposed to do with this? And this is the deal. Maybe you're not quite ready to say, I've got Christianity figured out. Well, join the crowd. If you think you've got to figure it out before you can be a part of it, I'm really sorry for you. You're coming at it through scientific method, and scientific method won't get you to faith. I mean, it can when you discover you can't discover it all. Fine. But maybe the invitation is not to figure it out. Maybe it's for Jesus to figure you out. Maybe it's just for you to just follow him. I mean, what's coming to mind in your mind right now of a way you need to change in your life to follow him more? Or maybe let me say it a different way. What if I trusted, that's a big word. What if I trusted Jesus enough to begin ordering my life around his teachings? Some people believe, and that's why they obey. But sometimes people begin obeying, and through obedience discover what to believe. May we be people who not only trust, but obey. May we be people that not only learn, but follow. May God transform each and every one of us this week as we go out in this world. May our lives be an example, and when somebody asks us what we're doing, maybe instead of trying to explain to them, we just say, why don't you just come do it with me and see for yourself? Amen?
Let us stand. Let us join together. Holy Lord, most holy Lord, you alone are worthy of my praise. O holy Lord, most holy Lord, with all of my heart I sing. And great are you, Lord, worthy of praise. Holy and true, great are you, Lord, most holy Lord.
Holy Lord, most holy Lord, you alone are worthy of my praise. O holy Lord, most holy Lord, with all of my heart I sing.
All of my heart I sing, great are you, Lord, worthy of praise. Holy and true, great are you, Lord, most holy Lord. Holy Lord, most holy Lord, you alone are worthy of my praise. O holy Lord, most holy Lord, with all of my heart I sing. Yes, great are you, Lord, worthy of praise. Holy and true, great are you, Lord, most holy Lord. And great are you, great are you, Lord, worthy of praise. Holy and true, great are you, Lord.
Next Sunday, Brandon is going to bring us a special sermon at the end of this series on baptism. If you have not obeyed the command to be baptized, it's going to be a great opportunity for you. I want you to be praying about that this week. It is a command. We do see it. It is something that Jesus did, and He commands us to follow Him. Does it make sense on paper? Is there some logical thing that... No. Jesus asked, and we follow. It is a submission of us to Him. And if you haven't done that yet, I want to encourage you to pray about that. Let the Holy Spirit guide you on that. Make that commitment. And next Sunday is a great opportunity for you to do it. We have clothing. We have everything we need. And if you want to do it before next Sunday, that's great too. You can do it today. But we're going to hear that special sermon next week, and Brandon's going to bring it. I'm excited about it. And we're going to close out the series with that one, which I'm looking forward to. If you need somebody to pray with you today, our elders want to do that, and there's a prayer room just out here to my right, your left, that you can go, and they will spend time with you, pray over whatever needs or wants that you have, and I would encourage you to do that. Otherwise, go and obey God.